What's up, everybody? Welcome into another YouTube live show. I am John Kurtz. It's been a couple days. Weird there. I felt like I was getting used to talking to you guys every day with realignment craziness that has been happening here. But today, as I dawn, I suppose these are like Arizona colors, right? Like some dark navy here. Should have busted out my Arizona shorts because today we know what everybody is talking about, wondering about. It is the future of the Arizona Wildcats and whether or not they are coming to the Big 12. That seems to be here at this point in time. The dominant prevailing storyline in Big 12 country anyway is, hey, what exactly is taking so long? We had one team just a couple of days ago. We've had to wait, what? Colorado became official on Friday. We're on like our third whole day of waiting here without a team being added to the Big 12, right? We should not be forced to live like this. We should not be forced to live like this. So what is going on with Arizona? You guys know here on this show, I try to tell you, like, I'm opinion guy. I'm going to give you analysis, opinions. I am generally not somebody that's going to be ultra plugged in on all this stuff. You find the people that you can trust on this. And when it comes to realignment and Arizona specifically, I think Jason Shear has been on top of this pretty much every step of the way. And being a guy that covers Arizona intimately, he is who I really have my eyes set on. So he put out a piece that was not behind a paywall. Certainly, if you follow him on Twitter, you can pick up little hints as to where this all is going. So we are going to break that down, analyze what seems to be the path here now for Arizona, and if and when they would make it official to come to the Big 12. But that is far from the only storyline going on right now. We've also got, of course, Oregon and Washington watch talk from legitimate media outlets there about the Big 12, but also now the Big 10. I mean, the interesting thing today, if you are following those that are typically somewhat in the know on the realignment front, there seems to be a lot of smoke going around about the Big 10 and the ACC and whether or not schools from the ACC, as soon as this week, again, if you're into the rumor mill, as soon as this week, perhaps there could be something happening there. Now, I would tell you very much to take that with a grain of salt. I would also tell you, like, I still don't know how exactly it is that they would be planning on getting out of the grant of rights and making all of that work. I have no idea. But all I know is that it seems like there's a lot going on that front. And potentially that could include Oregon and Washington and the Big Ten there also. So there's tons going on. If you are reading between the lines, I would say on the Pac-12 reaction to this, like what's going on with the Pac-12 propaganda machine, I would tell you that it appears that the Arizona stuff is legit, and they seem to be losing a little bit of faith. Even the most ardent supporters, namely John Canzano, has actually taken a couple of shots at the Pac-12 and how they are handling things right now in his latest couple of pieces. So it's interesting, man. The landscape out there certainly still continues to be, I would say, pretty favorable here to the Big 12. It's seemingly a matter of when, not if, but hey, it's conference realignment. Anything can happen and things can change on a dime. So that's why we're here doing these live shows. That's the basic outline here today. It's going to be a crowded one tonight, I'm sure, like most of these recent chats have been. So you guys know the deal if you've been here before, but if you have not, you can be a part of the chat tonight. Already over 300 people in here. I will not be able to keep up with what's going on in the chat. So if you want to make your voice heard, if you want to get your question or comment on the show, you click the $ below the chat box where it says chat. That will attach a donation to your question or comment. It will pin it up at the top of the chat for me. Ensures that it will get read. It will get on the show here tonight. So that is how you can be a part of this. Plus, you are supporting the work that I'm doing to bring you Big 12 content on a week in, week out basis here on the channel. And of course, all of that is very much appreciated. Could not do it without your guys' support. You guys have been awesome here lately as we've had just a crazy round of realignment kicking in, and perhaps just the beginning on the precipice of a lot more right as we lead up to actual football season. I would appreciate it as well if you guys would help me out for free. Just one click. You can help as well by liking the video. If you just go like the video, I would appreciate that. Totally free, easy way to support this channel. Also leave a comment, question or comment in the comment section before, during, or after the video. That helps as well. I believe I did see an email today. I've got to go check that. I believe I saw an email today that, my Venmo account that had been hacked from, where was it? Yonkers? I think like Yonkers, New York or something. I believe my Venmo account has been reinstated. You can check it, John-Kurtz-4. If you'd like to support the channel as well, you can do it that way if you're not catching this live and not a part of the actual live chat. And you can always send me a question or comment there too. And if you request that it make it onto a chat, I will definitely bring it onto a chat the next time that we do it. So lots of ways to be involved, lots of ways to support the channel. And I appreciate all of you. If you're new here, because I know these chats have been bringing in some new folks, and I appreciate that. Subscriber numbers going up. That is great. Love and appreciate all of you guys for doing that. But if you are new here and you have not subscribed here on this channel, I'm live at least twice a week, typically Wednesday, Sunday, bringing you conference realignment and college football, college basketball content. You're going to get it from a Big 12 perspective here on this channel as somebody who covered the league for 10 years on a full-time basis. Now just doing this side hustle thing. But that's what you're going to get here on this channel. If that sounds good to you, please do consider subscribing. Click that bell so you know it is when I'm going live each and every day. Okay. I think we've got that out of the way. Let me say this on the front of action happening this upcoming week. I would still think, and I could very well be wrong, but I would still think it's probably less likely that you see anything tangible happening this week, despite all of the rumors and everything swirling. However, it very well may happen, and that is because I am scheduled to go on vacation this week. I'm going to be leaving on Wednesday and was supposed to be gone Wednesday through Sunday. And I mean, I'm going to be planning on taking all the equipment and everything with me and just assuming that stuff will go totally crazy, right? We'll have 4 teams leaving, 2 from the Pac-12 leaving for the Big Ten. We'll have 2 from the ACC leaving for the Big Ten. Arizona, we'll get like the entire 4 corners into the Big 12. I'm sure all of that will happen within the next week just because it is the time that I'm trying to get away and be away from everything on vacation. That's my guess. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it actually goes. Okay. Before we dive right into the Arizona stuff, I see Snake here. Snake, thank you for being here. Appreciate your support, my friend. Snake says, I love the Big 12 rating the pack, and I think they should, but as a UCF fan, I hope we save some room for the ACC implosion. We need some travel partners. Well, that's tying everything together, Snake. That's a pretty good comment here today with all the ACC rumors that are out there. I believe it was a Barstool guy that was saying that the rumor mill was churning out Florida State, Clemson, Oregon, and Washington to the Big Ten. I will say Florida State smoke has definitely been more hot and heavy here lately, and the Big Ten, actually not the SEC, is where that goes, and the correlation there being like, hey, the Big Ten could get into a new state, they could get into Florida. I mean, the SEC already is in Florida, quite obviously with the Gators. So I don't know. That stuff seems way more complicated than me and more of a long shot, but it is definitely there. It's clear that Florida State is trying their damnedest to get out and try some way to get some more money. That is clearly what's happening right now with the Seminoles. So I'm with you. I feel you, Snake. This is a part of why, like, the group of 5 options that were mentioned by Brett McMurphy at one point in that tweet, like the San Diego State, UNLV, that sort of tier of schools, Memphis. That's definitely one I would not really want to explore right now, even though I think San Diego State has earned it. They're certainly deserving. I'm not a fan of exploring it right now because there is so much seemingly going on with the ACC, and that could be a way to get there. But you really need at least one more of the Pac-12 schools to feel pretty good about where you're at. And I still do think it's possible that it winds up being Arizona leaves for the Big 12. Oregon and Washington, if they're not going to get that Big 10 invite, could ultimately decide to just stay there and say, hey, it'll be an easy path to the playoff, even if the money's going to be substantially less, if Kliavkoff can ever get a deal done. But again, we're talking about a lot of ifs here. I do think that possibility could be out there. But the Big 12 certainly needs to get to 14 and then reassess. And UConn, I'm going to back burner UConn for a little while right now, just because I think until we find out what's going on with Arizona, there's not much reason to do that. Because if Arizona is going to make this jump, I don't think we're really sitting here talking a whole lot about what it is that's happening with the Huskies. So, okay. I see an R-Web comment that I'm very, very interested in. Jim, what's up, Jim? Jim Bagley here. I appreciate you, Jim. Jim says the Big 12 should take 3 teams from the Pac and not repeat the same mistake the Pac made when they did not add and kill the Big 12. Yeah, Jim, that is definitely what a lot of this is about. Kill or be killed. I've said it over and over again here on this channel. Got to go for the death blow while you can. And if you can get 3 of them, I think you should do it. Whether or not that's going to be Arizona State and Utah or Oregon and Washington, I am a fan, although I understand the trepidation with Oregon and Washington. And, it seems like Brett Yormark probably has tried to reiterate that message to Oregon and Washington. Hey, if you're going to be here, you better want to be here. And that may be a difficult thing to pull off. But do Arizona State and Utah want to be here right now? I mean, they may be forced to, but it still seems like they are very much dragging their feet on that front. So, yeah. Anyway, Jim, I'm with you on that. Okay, our web says Baltimore is throwing in the towel. CDM. Okay, I'm going to check out the DM here. Well, the problem is, our web, I am blocked, so I'm not able to see it. I'm going to have to pull it up in incognito mode, see if I can do this here on the fly. It's a problem when you fly a little too close to the sun here, folks. Sometimes you get blocked. Okay. So it's a chart. Our web, you're sending me to a chart, man. I don't know. I don't know that I have the stomach to read an Baltimore chart here. Since the day I very publicly remained extremely surprised that the Big Ten didn't take all 5 Pac founders, who fit so well into the Big Ten, if the Big Ten leaders changed their mind. Okay, so what this looks like, comparing the Pac-9 schools fit institutionally and athletically relative to the Big Ten and Big 12. Wow, so he's basically taking a chart and saying, like, here's how the rest of the schools in the Pac would compare to the Big Ten and the Big 12. Okay, I see what you're saying. That does seem like throwing in the towel and saying, like, hey, here's what these schools would look like in the Big 12 versus the Big 10 and what is going on there. That's all our web, I wish I could decipher a little bit more on the fly here, but I'd have to do a little bit of work because, again, I am blocked. So if you have some screenshots of the other tweets, because I saw there were a string of them there, that would be great. Shoot me the screenshots. But I think I probably am like, I would imagine 95% of this chat that we are blocked. So that's going to make it a little bit tougher. But that hits on one of the points today that I'm definitely going to get to, and that is that, I mean, even John Canzano seems a little bit defeated right now and frustrated with what the Pac-12 is doing. The mood does not seem to be very good at all. And let's start tying all that together, okay? Let's get into the Arizona piece of this. And again, if you have a question or comment that you want to add to the discussion, click the $ below the chat box where it says chat. That is how you do that. Attach a donation to your chat. It will ensure that it gets on the show. Pop it up above everything and pin it for me in the chat. So Jason Shear, as I mentioned, is the guy that I'm paying a lot of attention to right now. I don't try to pretend like I'm someone who is overly connected into what is going on with all of this, but Jason Shear has been not afraid to put the info that he has out there and stand by it. And he has been pretty correct throughout a lot of this process as somebody who obviously is very well connected around Arizona, runs the Arizona 24/7 site. I think most of you, if you're on Twitter by now, you're probably aware of who Jason Shear is. He's definitely been vindicated with how this has played out. He's gone toe-to-toe with Canzano and certainly been vindicated. And now that the spotlight is on Arizona, I mean, that's the guy that I'm paying attention to here in all of this. So here are a couple tweets from him. I think the first, and this is kind of a managing expectations sort of tweet, he said, I think people need to realize that realignment is a process. Moves don't happen quickly. I suppose something could happen this week, but it would surprise me. So there you have it. And if you think back to the Colorado timeline, it makes perfect sense. First of all, Colorado seemed to get very close to the line in like May, kind of toe that line of jumping and then didn't go. And so sometimes you could hit a snag at the last minute if something is about to happen. The other thing is, it doesn't mean that there's not a deadline this week for the Pac-12 to produce some numbers for Arizona if they're getting a little bit of pressure from the Big 12, or if Arizona is just now feeling more antsy in light of what has happened with Colorado. There certainly could be a deadline of sorts out there this week, but that doesn't mean that you would see like an official announcement very shortly thereafter. It could be a very different situation than that, because Colorado didn't dot all the I's, cross the T's, get it voted on until days after what we found out was their actual deadline. Because remember, you had Phil DiStefano, the chancellor at Colorado, talk to Sean Keeler of the Denver Post and said, tomorrow, this was a Wednesday, he said, tomorrow, I expect to see numbers from George Kliavkoff, and, hopefully we stay committed to the Pac-12. He was saying the next day he was expecting to see numbers from George Kliavkoff. Turns out now we see that was basically putting some pressure on there. That was in essence a threat. There were no numbers delivered. Friday was media day, and we didn't find out until the next week. It was the following week, right, when Colorado officially went. So it still took days. For it to actually unfold after Colorado's official deadline had not been met. So keep that in mind this week. Even if that is the case, even if it is the case that Arizona has a deadline this week for the Pac-12, it could still take a little while. There are numerous reasons why. These are massive decisions. You can understand that. These are decisions that affect a very long-term trajectory of the programs, a lot of money. They touch a lot of different people because you're talking about moving non-revenue sports and scheduling. And this would all be unfolding rather quickly here. I mean, the Pac-12's TV deal is up at the end of they need that TV deal for 24, right? So we're talking about getting through this season and then figuring out for the next year. So there's a lot of moving parts that have to coalesce and come together. And Arizona, say what you will about them, they have been pretty patient. Like Robert Robbins. I hear people who seem to know him calling him Bobby Robbins. I guess maybe I should just continue to go Robert. I don't know. Either way, president in Arizona, he has been very steadfast, at least publicly, but seemingly privately too. He's been pretty steadfast in saying that they're going to give the Pac-12 a chance to produce the numbers and then make their decision from there. Not saying that can't change. I would not trust anything that anybody is saying publicly right now. Bob Thompson, the longtime exec at Fox Sports, confirmed that earlier this week when he said as much on Twitter. Like, don't trust anything that anybody is saying publicly right now because that's just how it goes in realignment. You know, there were some that took Phil DiStefano's comments to Sean Keeler as like, oh, hey, look, details are coming. They're committed to the Pac-12. Everything's good. And in fact, it was the complete opposite of that. So don't trust anything anybody is saying publicly right now that's coming from athletic directors, presidents, et cetera, because that could all change on a dime. A little bit more from Shear, his analysis of what's going on right now with, for instance, like John Canzano, who I mentioned, who seems to be frustrated, losing a little bit of faith in his beloved Pac-12. This tweet is from Jason Shear. He says, Barnes and Schultz must be panicking a bit because that's twice now John Canzano has said the first few days of this week are important. So when we're talking about deadlines there, that is a part of it. Canzano has also echoed some of that. Sorry, I was looking up one thing here. Okay, so he's referencing Barnes. Scott Barnes is the athletic director at Oregon, or Oregon State, mind you. And Kirk Schultz is the president at Washington State, who a lot of people assume that the sources for Canzano, and I've had that reiterated to me, that the sources for Canzano are coming predominantly from Oregon State and Washington State, two schools with probably the most to lose in the entire Pac-12 right now, and that certainly have motivation to keep this thing together. So his tweet saying Barnes and Schultz must be panicking a bit because that's twice now John Canzano has said the first few days of this week are important, is referencing, hey, if he's getting a lot of his information from that, and you're hearing first couple of days of this week are very important, then it must be like even those guys at this point are starting to get a little bit freaked out and understand that Arizona needs answers and needs positive answers fast. Here is a Canzano blurb that Shear may be referencing there. He said, I had a Pac-12 CEO group source tell me 2 weeks ago, quote, it will be worth the wait. I don't think that person was blowing smoke, but the wait needs to end soon. How's next week for everyone? Work for you? So there's, we know about the snark that Canzano has. We know about some of that arrogance and pompousness that Canzano has. Now, some of that's starting to shine through with a little bit of friendly fire, right? That's coming back down on the Pac-12 a bit with what he is saying there. So, again, you can sense the frustration. And that is not the only thing that has shown that Canzano is starting to break a little bit. Again, the most ardent of Pac-12 supporter, I suppose, this side of Tony Altimore, John Canzano also had this to say in response to the Pac-12 statement, which that came out on Thursday. It was literally like right at the end of the show. I can remember reading the statement toward the end of the show, the last live show I did. So we have not had a full chance to respond to it, but the Pac-12 just said, hey, we're all committed to each other. But the piece that I think was the most telling and the most intriguing and frustrating for Pac-12 fans is the fact that they still said, we plan to get the media deal done and then work on expansion. It's not doing what the Big 12 is doing or did when teams left and saying, hey, we need to just go get strength in numbers. We need to show that we're moving forward and try to do something worthy of progress here. That is not what happened. They said, we're still sticking to this line of getting a deal done and then trying to expand. And so this was Canzano's response. He said, still, the conference I hoped would emerge fist high, throwing haymakers, instead offered a careful 105-word statement. It addressed the need to conclude the media rights negotiation and talked about embracing expansion. I'd have preferred a single sentence, quote, SMU and San Diego State, let's do this. And I can understand why. I can understand why that would be the response from Canzano, because I mean, you need a win. Like, you need a win. And we can say what we want about SMU or San Diego State. It would seem like SMU probably would be first in line now because their exit fee is going to be $18 million, and they've got some really deep pockets there. They'd be more likely to be able to cover that than the 34 mil that San Diego State is on the hook for right now. But if you at least just did something that would seemingly be progress and some positive headlines and moving towards something instead of just standing here and continuing to just try to make a deal appear out of thin air, I mean, that would seem to behoove the league. And even the guys who have been like Baghdad Bob for this league for a long time are not coming out and really defending that piece of it. So that does not seem great. If you're starting to lose Canzano, you're probably in some real trouble here. And that seems to be what's happening right now with the situation in the Pac-12. One last thing that I would throw in here from Jason Shear before I get to some of your donations, read your questions or comments. This was another tweet that he had. He said, the rumors this week are going to be insane. Would expect the Big Ten and ACC rumors to pick up as well. So when I referenced that at the beginning of the show, there's a part of where that is coming from. Florida State to the Big Ten smoke. Again, Barstool guy was out there saying Florida State, Clemson, Oregon, Washington, all to the Big Ten this week. I know that for Florida State, August 15th is a deadline to pay attention to. There have been some of those dates that have come along the way here that have seemingly been real benchmark dates. August 15th would be a deadline that Florida State would have to meet to notify the league that they are trying to leave if they were to do that. So, that puts another potential stressor on everybody here over the next couple of weeks to watch what is happening with Florida State, who clearly seems to be the most unhappy out of anybody in the ACC. They're definitely the most vocal about their unhappiness, even if they are not technically the most unhappy there. You hear a lot of chirping out of Florida State right now about wanting to get out of the ACC. And with Colorado leaving, it just seems to have kind of opened a crack in the door here for everybody else to start thinking about all of this. And a lot of it, the Big Ten should really be at the center of a lot of it because they're the ones that really hold the cards for what could be massive movement. Because if they decide to let Oregon and Washington in, if they decide they really want to go down that road of trying to help Florida State out, however the hell it is that they're going to do that with that grant of rights, it seems fairly ironclad until 2036. The Big Ten is certainly the league that could really open up the floodgates on this and get a lot of movement and a lot of chaos happening just less than a month before the start of the actual college football season. Okay, so there's basically your Arizona update for right now. I would just encourage you to follow Jason Shear, certainly on Twitter. If you really want to go deep into it, you can subscribe to his site. I know a lot of people that have been doing that as well here. But that's the guy who I really have my eye on most this week, with Arizona taking center stage right now in the decision-making process on the Big 12. Okay, Matthew, on the topic of our friends in the desert, as the chat jumps forward on me. Sorry there, Matthew. Matthew says, Tucson weather is great in January and February. Great basketball road trips coming up soon. Dude, I would love to get to Tucson. Would love to get to Tucson. I know I told the show on a story recently, but I missed my chance. K-State played in the tournament there when I was in college, 2011. Jacob Pullen's senior year, that was a pretty good team. K-State was a 5 seed. I did not get to go because I was doing a K-State baseball broadcast in Austin. So I didn't get to go. And I had my friend pick me up some Arizona shorts instead because they've got some iconic, cool basketball shorts. So would love to get out there. I've been to Phoenix many a time, but would love to get out to Tucson and see what that's about. I was surprised. I saw Tucson population was like 300,000, right? Or I don't know. Or no, maybe I'm an idiot. I was looking at it's 543, but like the metro area was like close to 1 million or over 1 million. Anyway, I was surprised at the size there of Tucson. So I like that. Okay, our web, I appreciate you hopping back in. Our web says he sent me some pictures in the DMs. Okay. So he's got Oregon. Wow. His chart here, athletic success versus academic rank. Some Pac-9 members, already down to the Pac-9. Some 9 and non-members fit very well institutionally with the Big Ten, while others are closer in terms of academics and sports to the Big 12. And yeah, he's got Oregon closer to the Big 12. He's got them with a red dot, which represents Big 12. So Tony Taltimore is calling Oregon, by virtue of his chart, a Big 12 school. How about that? Washington, Cal, and Stanford all fit in the Big 10 category. I regret to inform our Utah Ute friends that they fall basically like right in the middle here. I'm trying to see. It's really confusing. I can't tell if that dot is Colorado or Utah, like what exactly it is. I guess we're going to say that, man, I don't know. I guess we're going to say that Utah is, they're just right on the borderline. I would probably shade them slightly towards Big 12, doing some live analysis here on the air. So Utah, you're just slightly more Big 12. You got more truck stop in you than you'd like to admit, according to Mr. Pac-9 himself, Tony Altimore. So thank you for that, R-Web. That is good insight. And definitely shows you where the head is at of a lot of these really ardent Pac-12 supporters as of right now. So anyway, thank you, R-Web, for that. Much appreciated. Doing God's work, getting us screenshots of those who have blocked us in the conference realignment process. Starter 179. What's up, Starter 179? Texas Tech versus Arizona all-time football record is 26-5 Tech. 5 ties. All right. Played for years in the border conference. Restore the conference mates. Okay. I like it. Texas Tech, Arizona, man. That sounds like a really fun matchup. We haven't talked a lot about like the specific nuts and bolts of what Arizona brings to the table. We know they've got an elite basketball brand and basketball program. Football, it seems to be on the come up. I mean, quietly, like Jed Fish seems to be doing a really good job. And I know he's shaking some things up on the recruiting front in a good way this offseason too. So like, Arizona feels to me like they could be sneaky better than people think actually out on the field this fall. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think pretty highly of the job that Jed Fish is doing. So I would love to, like Texas Tech, Arizona this year, I think could be a very entertaining football game. Would love to watch it. All for rekindling some of those rivalries. Starter 179. Definitely here for it. Christian, what's up, Christian? Appreciate you being here, Christian. Christian Thorpe in the house says odds of the Pac ADs going full Padme Amidala and calling for a vote of no confidence in George Kliavkoff, or does that only happen in a galaxy far, far away? I have seen some Star Wars movies. I was able to pick up that reference, thankfully, but I'm not really like a huge Star Wars guy, so I don't even remember Queen. That's Queen Amidala, right? Was that like episode? She was episode 1, I think, and maybe some of those first ones. I don't know. I'm way out over my skis on that. I don't remember the vote of no confidence, but I mean, perhaps I've seen a lot. It's been interesting reading some of the debates and almost like pre-obituaries of the Pac-12 that have come out. Brady McCullough in the LA Times wrote a really good one about the Pac-12. And a lot of it has deflected back to Larry Scott, but perhaps more importantly, like just the university presidents, the general leadership in the Pac-12. And I think it's all right. Like George Kliavkoff was dealt a poor hand. He may have even gotten some really bad consulting advice from his partner, if that's where they really got to the point where they're trying to get $500 million for the TV rights at one point in time and just setting way too high of expectations for everybody involved. That's caused all of them to look silly. But ultimately, I mean, the presidents hired and empowered Larry Scott. They have been the ones dragging their feet on expanding, doing anything to be forward thinking. All things, by the way, that it seemed like we used to always hear about the Big 12 now are going that way for the Pac-12. And so there's been, I think those that have like really followed the league they're not absolving George Kliavkoff of everything for sure, but it seems to be a lot of like retrospective looking back and saying like, hey, the presidents in the ivory towers here that just don't care, know, etc. enough about big time college athletics have really screwed the pooch by letting this get to where it's at. And I think that is fair. So as much as I have kind of crushed George Kliavkoff here, because I think, he doesn't do the league any favors with what he says publicly when he does speak. I think his strategy of not speaking at all and putting out bad info to the presidents that's been trampled over and had them looking silly over and over again, only releasing these meager statements whenever something seems to be going wrong and they are feeling the pressure. I mean, I think he's done a lot of things wrong, but he also, he's inherited like lawsuits that were not his fault. USC and UCLA, I just don't think he was going to stop that. USC, it seems pretty widely reported now, USC really put their foot down on expanding or adding any Big 12 teams when they had the chance to in 2021 after Texas and Oklahoma, and USC shuts it down and then turns around and leaves. So that seems to me to be kind of like a Bob Bowlesby situation where I just don't know that he could have really done much to keep USC and UCLA happy enough to stick around. So he probably does get crushed a little bit too much, but there have certainly been plenty of missteps as well. And it's just a failure in leadership overall that I think the real problem here boils down to, you can blame it on one group, presidents, Larry Scott, et cetera, if you really want to, but it's just the general attitude. It's the stereotype, and this is basically what Brady McCullough was saying in the LA Times, it is the stereotype of the West Coast institutions personified that has led to their downfall. That's exactly what it has been. Like feeling too high and mighty to ever associate with the lowlifes in the rest of the country for football specific reasons or sports specific reasons, and now they stand right at the doorstep of losing a lot of students because they're going to lose some of the allure of their athletics, or at least it not being quite as big time. Like they're staring that possibility in the face, and I think that's something that the academia world there just hasn't known or cared about. And we'll see what the consequences of that ultimately are going to be. But it's that whole attitude that's really caused a lot of problems for this league over and over again. Long ways to say, Christian, I don't know that you're going to see a vote of no confidence actually being put out there on George Kliavkoff, but maybe if we get to the point where there's supposed to be a deadline for Arizona, it's not met, Arizona leaves, I guess maybe at that point you have something. But I would just ask too, like how does that make the situation better for the Pac-12 if they do go vote of no confidence on George Kliavkoff and try to get him out? I understand he's kind of screwed this all up, but you're still at a point where who are you going to hire on short notice to go and figure out how to flip this thing around? Who is going to actually right the ship? I don't know what the answer to that is. We've also had like the number 2 in charge of the Pac-12 left to go to that consulting firm not that long ago, right? Within the last couple of months. I don't know if there is somebody that's like in-house that's just been waiting for their shot that disagrees with what Kliavkoff has been doing. It just seems to me like the problems run so deep there that I don't know that would accomplish a whole lot necessarily for this league right now. Joe, what's up, Joe? Joe Khatib, appreciate you being here. Joe says, Jason Shear took a lot of flack from people, but he has been pretty spot on with a lot of this stuff. Good job, JK. Good show. Hey, thank you, Joe. Appreciate your support as always. Thank you for being here. Yeah, look, Jason Shear, nothing but praise for Jason Shear from me, monitoring how all that's gone throughout this process. And I mean, I will even admit, like, there were times where I was kind of like, man, I mean, he is really sticking his neck out with this. Like, I kind of was thinking, like, I hope he's right. I mean, obviously I was kind of on the side that he was on. He wasn't really like pulling for Big 12 guy. He's interested in the best for Arizona, and he saw through exactly what was happening with the Pac-12 for so long with Kliavkoff and the numbers and not actually being a deal really there. He was just one of the first to really ardently see that and be very vocal about it. And so there were times I was like, oh God, hope he's right. Because he is sticking himself out there, but he's been right. He's generally been pretty damn right. So I'm with you. I think he's done a really nice job. Robert, what's up, Robert? Appreciate you being here, Robert. Robert says, happy Yormark's Day on Tuesday. Kliavkoff is Edward Smith, captain of the Titanic. Also, congrats, John, on getting to over 17,000 subscribers. Well, thank you for that, Robert. That was a nice accomplishment that we have hit. And that's a great time to remind everybody in here with almost 1,200 people in the chat here tonight. If you're new here, you have not subscribed to the channel, I'm live on Wednesdays and Sundays typically. More than that this week. We've done 3 live shows this week with everything going on, and you'll also get some standalone content throughout the week. But if you're into conference realignment, if you're into college football and college basketball, this is where you want to be. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Click that bell so you know when it is that I'm going live or dropping content. Pretty easy way to get keyed in there. You'll get all of that from a Big 12 perspective here on this channel. But if it's happening in the conference realignment world or the college football world, we're going to be talking about it certainly here on this channel. Kliavkoff does seem to be a little bit like Edward Smith right now. It feels like that ship is definitely going down, and maybe some of the Pac-12 propaganda machines trying to grab a lifeboat with the way their tone seems to be changing a little bit. So yeah, it's not a bad analogy, Robert. And somebody, I wish I could remember who exactly it was that had someone did the meme video where they took the scene from the Titanic where like the ship's sinking and they had different faces on everybody and et cetera, et cetera. You know how that goes. People like photoshopping faces on there and making it all work. It was pretty well done. Neelio, what's up, Neelio? Neelio, thank you, my friend, for your support as always. Neelio says, good Sunday evening to you, John. Great show as usual, my friend. About a month away from kickoff. #GoCats. Thank you, Neelio. That is something we could probably all take a little bit of gratitude. Neelio sparked my memory about this thought that I was having today. A little bit of gratitude in the fact that we've got the realignment stuff going right now to just carry us through to the beginning of football season, right? I mean, this would be a brutally boring time sports-wise if not for that. Like, before this week, I was sitting around like, God, I mean, I'm watching like Chiefs training camp video, like just little 20-second snippets of practice and soaking it all up like I've been walking in the desert, and just, little droplets of water, give them to me as fast as you can to quench my thirst. Just not a whole lot going on now, but this is capturing our attention for sure. Our screen time. I'm sure the screen time notification you get on Sunday every day on your iPhone could tell you about all that too. So at least a little bit of gratitude from me with that. I just I am in some ways kind of hoping that going on vacation this week will actually turn into a vacation and not just a ton of work here. But anyway, appreciate you, Neilio. You're my guy. Thank you so much for being here and supporting the channel. Steve, what's up, Steve? Steve Barnes, thank you for your support. Much appreciate it, my friend. Steve says, I personally do not believe that the Big Ten is all that hot for Oregon. They're nowhere near Washington, Oregon. They're nowhere near Washington. Oregon lines up more with Houston. Ooh, I don't think there is an Oregon, Washington, Arizona, Arizona State, or Oregon State. All right, I'm going to try. I'm trying to decipher a little bit exactly what you're saying there, Steve. But the first point, I think is one that we definitely can address. And I really appreciate the support again, Steve. It says, I personally do not believe the Big Ten is all that hot for Oregon. Well, I think you're basically right because of the finances of it. They may really like the idea of having Oregon in the conference, but the finances don't really work. And they're doing a great job. I mean, they're neck and neck with the SEC. So bringing on another school that you may like, but is not going to make you whole financially, doesn't make a lot of sense. I suppose then you start to talk about coming in at a reduced share, but that brought into play before Colorado left the question of the kind of existential question of like, do we want the blood on our hands of ending the Pac-12? Do we want to do that to them right after taking USC and UCLA? Maybe just let this all play out a little bit longer while we're still in a very powerful position right now with the richest TV deal coming up now that we have signed. Maybe things change with the Colorado move and feeling like now it wouldn't be so much the death blow to the Pac-12, but I think the reality still exists about the finances that Oregon's not going to add enough that everybody will be making the same or more per school in the league if you were to add them. And do you really need it? It's just a question of like maybe Oregon's kind of a want, but it's not really a need right now. And they're not exactly feeling that. They also do. I mean, they're on the West Coast. I know that's the Pacific Northwest, but they're already on the West Coast. Maybe now if the Florida State stuff is fairly true, they're trying to use their view more toward like, hey, let's go get Florida State and get into Florida, expand into new territory, and kind of that'd be almost like a direct shot at the SEC to get in there. So I think there is some truth to what you're saying there, Steve. I've certainly been open and receptive to the line of thinking that a lot of people have had that let's see, that Washington is actually ahead of Oregon in the pecking order a little bit, that Washington could be a more attractive option than Oregon. But I think when we're talking about the Big Ten, I would imagine they are probably a package deal. If you're going to get one, you might as well have the other. So anyway, I think that's not a bad comment, Steve. I think it's not a bad comment. I see Cubs Mike. How many viewers for John to get a 100% working webcam? Here's the deal with it. These DSLR cameras are great. They look awesome, but they have to like clean the lens every 20 minutes. So there's nothing I can do. I have tried. I've talked to my content creation video creator friends about it. I can't get it to not do that. So I would have to go to a less quality camera, I think, to do that. I mean, unless someone else has a better solution, but there's a real nice camera. So, I think you guys can tough it out for like 1 second every 20 minutes while it cuts to black there. McMuffin, what's up, McMuffin? Thank you for your support, my friend. McMuffin says, hey, John, the 2012 Baylor K-State game hit my YouTube feed randomly today. That day was the highlight of my freshman year. Wondering if you remember that game by chance. McMuffin, why you got to do that, man? Why you got to do that to me? Like, this is a happy celebratory time. Yes, I remember that game. I was covering the team. I was there. I was shooting video at that point. Speaking of video, that was back in my days where my job was to shoot video from the sideline. So I was on the sideline at freaking Floyd Casey Stadium in 2012 watching K-State's national championship hopes go down the drain with every yard that Lake Seastrunk picked up on the ground, which felt like about 500 that day. And then I also remember returning at some point to see that, I can't remember if this is in McLean. I think it would have had to be McLean because I came then in 14 and that was in the new stadium, I think. But I remember there was like a mural at some point, like just a wall where it was the picture of Baylor's defense like stacking up Colin Klein at the goal line too, and I was just like, oh sweet, well I'm gonna love watching that every single time I come through here now. So yes, McMuffin, you got what you wanted. There's my sob story. I remember. I will say the one thing about that game, the two big heartbreaks in K-State history, 1998. All they need to do is win the Big 12 championship game to go to the national championship. They're playing a Texas A&M team that was okay, but not nearly as good as K-State, which had a legit claim as the number one team in the country that year. And K-State blew a 17-point lead, 15-point lead in the fourth quarter and lost in double overtime. That is literally as sickening and heartbreaking as you could possibly get. At least Baylor was like, you knew it was over quick. I mean, it was pretty apparent early in that game. That was not K-State's day. So you got it, McMuffin. You got it out of me. You're welcome. You're welcome. Matthew, what's up, Matthew? Matthew Hunsaker here. Appreciate you, man. Matthew says, gotta run. We'll listen later. I'm guessing for your Wednesday show, we might have another realignment announcement to cover. Gonna be a crazy week. Yeah, I think it's going to be a crazy week, regardless of whether anything official happens or not. Because now, I mean, we're back in like peak realignment season where realignment season doesn't really ever die. I mean, it's pretty much always there right now. Ever since the Texas-Oklahoma thing started, it's basically always been there. And that's, I mean, a large part of why, I'm able to do live shows throughout the year. There are still things happening and things to cover. But it's like only the sickos, kind of like the sickos committee. It's like the sickos on realignment are into it for much of the year. Then it gets like ratcheted up to like 20 when you start having real movement happening. And so Colorado leaves, and now it's like everybody's interested in this. Everybody's here. Instead of 254 people in the chat, we've got 1,254 people here in the chat. And when that happens, we get back to best part of realignment season, and in a lot of ways, the worst part. It's entertaining, but it can also be very difficult. And, now we have less real verification on Twitter, which makes it tougher to suss out what's legit and what's not. But you have more people that suddenly have sources that are hearing things about something that's generally very secretive and very difficult to report accurately on conference realignment. So you're just going to see now with the interest peaked up, as I mentioned, being in a kind of a dead period here in the sports calendar, especially college sports fans. We're all really jonesing for football, but we don't have it. So everybody wants to get involved. Everybody suddenly has a source. Everybody suddenly has a story. Everybody knows what's going on. You're going to see a lot of it. And the tough part will be determining what to believe and what not to believe, and what is legit and what is not. DZ Low, I'm sorry. DZ Low says, I skipped his super chat. I'm sorry, man. I thought I was on top of it here today, but the chat has gotten a little crazy. Now you're making me paranoid that I'm missing somebody else. All right. I'm sorry, DZ Low. That's my bad. I do remember seeing that you had thrown one in there earlier before now. So let me get back to it here. DZ Low 785. What's your realistic four that the Big 12 could grab if the ACC does implode? Also, shout out to Directional Florida. Make sure to get that dig in for you, DZ Low. Shout out to Directional Florida, #EMA. What's your realistic four that the Big 12 could grab if the ACC does implode? Well, I think like Pitt and Louisville seem like two right off the bat that have, Louisville almost was a Big 12 member once upon a time in the like West Virginia TCU era. So I think that would happen. Pitt certainly makes sense to bring along for the ride for a lot of reasons, but I would love to get the backyard brawl into the conference. That would be amazing. So I'm here for that. Duke is an interesting one. I would think that Brett Yormark certainly would be very intrigued by that because of what he is trying to do with the basketball league. And perhaps that then becomes pretty appealing for Duke, although, I don't know what options they would really have then. So like those seem like three. Who else am I missing? Virginia Tech. I saw somebody speculating about Virginia Tech, but it seems like they are, they're one of the Magnificent Seven, so they think they have other options, be that the Big Ten or the SEC. Maybe that's another one there. Off the top of my head, that's what I would give for you. But like DZ Low said, and DZ Low, man, I owe you one. I'm sorry for missing the super chat there. Trying to keep on top of it, but I guess I'm not tougher again when the chat is this crazy. But if I miss it, DM me on Twitter. It's at JL Kurtz, JLKURTZ on Twitter. Slide in those DMs if I miss your super chat, and just let me know. Let me know what it is that I'm missing. I'll try to keep tabs on that so that we can make sure that we get everybody on here that does donate. Christian, what's up, Christian? Appreciate you, Christian. Christian Thorpe here once again. Christian says Arizona gets final guaranteed $31.7 million contract spot, forcing Oregon and Washington to move. then ESPN and Fox bend over backwards to grant them the same deal. Well, yeah, I mean, the thought, so the Big 12, this is a point I was going to make. The Big 12, I think, has done some strategic messaging here and saying that they are trying to stick at 14. Heather Dinich seems to be the one who's getting fed this information that seems to be strategic from the Big 12. She said this is what she is saying. A source told her 14 seems to be our best number. Now that we're at 13, who's going to be the first to make a move to start having a conversation with us was the general discussion today. We talked a lot about different schools, but it's more about, hey, we've got room for one more, and who wants to be the first to really want to be a part of the Big 12 now and join us. That seems to me to be very strategic about Arizona. I think under any circumstance, if you're going to come tell like Fox, like, hey, we can get Oregon and Washington in here, and you would be paying less for them here than you would be paying in the Big Ten, I'm sure they would be all about it. It would save them some money, and they're obviously premier big brands that they would love to have inventory-wise in the Big 12. So, yeah, I don't think there's any scenario where it's like literally just one, and like if Arizona takes it, everybody else is out. Oregon and Washington may well be out because the Big 12 doesn't feel like they would be very committed, and they don't want to deal with somebody else like a Texas that's going to try and push people around. That very well could be the case. I don't think it would be because you're going to have Fox and ESPN saying like, hey, not going to do it. Now, they may have a limit of like, 3 or 4 still to come here, but so there could still be in some ways. I see some Robbie telling me I missed a super chat. I'm scrolling way back up now because I'm seeing all of these that have come in here, trying to keep up, guys. If somebody wants, Robbie, if you are able to screenshot some of these and DM them to me on Twitter, that would be great. We started off a little slower with these. Now it's getting absolutely crazy. Christopher, what's up, Christopher? Christopher says, if Arizona drags their feet on this, UConn next. Yes, absolutely. I think it would still take some work. I don't think it's 100% going to happen because I think it would take some work from Brett Yormark to convince everybody else. Barry Trammell, if you want an interesting opinion on UConn, Barry Trammell from the Oklahoman, guy that I respect a lot, elder statesman of the league media, has been around for a long time. He wrote a column about why he's not really a fan of UConn, even though in 2016 he actually advocated for the Big 12 to add UConn. So interesting premise. That's a good article to go read. Roger, what's up, Roger? Roger, in with the chat. Roger says, to quote the line in Tombstone, quote, are you going to do something or just stand there and bleed? That's Roger. That's exactly where we're at, man. It's exactly where we're at. And I think that's basically what John Canzano is trying to say. John Canzano is trying to say that to the Pac-12. You just going to stand there and bleed out, George, or are you going to actually go do something tangible? Because nothing tangible has been happening. Absolutely nothing. I do feel like I missed some super chats with the way the chat just jumped me there the last time I went up there. So again, if I missed you, DM me on Twitter. DM me on Twitter at JL Kurtz. Let me know what it is that I missed. And if someone wants to screenshot some of these, like a real American hero did the other night, that would be great as well. Christian, what's up, Christian? Christian says, if news breaks on vacation, stream from a truck stop. That's actually that's a killer idea, man. If I rolled up, what would you guys do if I just pop in the live on Wednesday and I am literally like in the cab of an 18-wheeler, just sitting there at a Love's along the interstate somewhere and doing the live chat there? I mean, would probably be a little tricky to get the internet humming well enough there. I mean, our internet out here in the Midwest, as Pac-12 folks, of course, know, our internet out here does not work very well. Most of us are very new to the internet because we just don't get it. I mean, there's nothing out here. We're just living in our trailer homes and truck stops and all that. So it might be a little bit difficult to get that internet working, but that would be a fantastic idea to do a show. It would be a fantastic idea. Isaiah, what's your prediction on when the 14th joins? I thought it was the 14th. I was like, I think it'll be Arizona. When it happens, I think it'll be Arizona, and I think it would happen late next week, early the week after, something like that. Maybe just to be safe, I would go the week after next to give it a little bit of time and space to actually happen. That's what I would say. The Yates 27. Still a lot of delusion out there in Pac-12 land. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be some. I've tried to just let a lot of it pass and not engage with a ton of it. Because, I mean, basically my entire timeline is that. I know some of you guys are going to roll your eyes and say, like, John, you're always out there mixing it up a little bit. And yes, that is true. I am self-aware enough to recognize that. But I see a lot of it. And a lot of it I try to just be like, look, especially if it's Washington State or Oregon State fans, I'm like, look, I get it. I'd be doing the same thing in their position, taking shots at whatever it is that I could. So I'm not going to just crush them with that. But I am also giving, like, Stewart Mandel has come around. If you didn't see his interview on 365, you should go watch that because it was really good. He admitted to the bad takes that he had in the past about the Big 12's future, of course, referencing back in like 2021, his horrible article about the TV numbers and all that. Like, Stewart has repented here. He's come back around and understood what is going on. I would say John Wilner is still like kind of in the middle. He had a quote on Feinbaum. I can pull that up for you. That got a lot of run on Twitter. He had a quote on Feinbaum saying that he's talking to sources outside of those connected just with the Pac-12 or Big 12, and they're still telling him that a deal is out there for the Pac-12 to get similar to the Big 12's range. May not have quite as much linear, but that a deal is still out there. And even Jim Williams was responding saying, like, I don't think that's out there, John. I don't think that's out there either. Let me go on the record with that. So he's still a little bit in the middle, but he's been more in the middle the entire time. And Canzano, as I've already mentioned today, seems to be starting to turn a little bit. Admiral Snack Bar. What's up, Admiral Snack Bar? Admiral Snack Bar says, don't like the Memphis UNLV rumors. It's a trap. Hey, I'm with you. I'm with you, Admiral Snack Bar. First of all, way to commit to the bit. Love anybody that's going to commit to the bit here and get a nice little laugh out of me. That was good. I don't think that the Big 12 is going to go to that. I don't think it's going to be necessary at this point, basically. I think Arizona is going to do this eventually. I think that's the overwhelmingly likely favorite at this point. Not guaranteed, but I do think that is the most likely thing that will happen. And then you're getting away from G5. Jeff, what's up, Jeff? Great to see you, Jeff. Jeff Fuller. You should all go follow Jeff Fuller on Twitter. Great follow. Great for some info and conference realignment discourse. Jeff says, Arizona President Robbins pushed for the Big 12 and Pac merger after Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC, but 0 of the 11 other Pac presidents supported him. USC only had 1 vote. Pac hubris is a real thing. Yeah, no, that's a big part of the case people have been making against the Pac-12 presidents. It's also interesting on Robbins, who I know I've heard a little bit about his background now. He's not like the traditional, not as much like a traditional background that you would think of for a university president. So I think he acts and reacts a little bit differently in all of this. And I mean, the Jason Shears of the world could tell you much more about this. I'm just picking up on it from afar now. But even like some of the quotes he's given, he's been a little more forthcoming, I think, with the quotes sometimes, and just a little more. It seems to be a much more entertaining quote a lot of times. And I think it's probably because of some of his background. But yeah, give him credit for that, man. Anybody that saw that at the time, I mean, like, that's what the Pac-12 should have been thinking. Like, go in the Big 12, extend your reach, be forward thinking, swallow your pride a little bit if you're worried about a Houston or a TCU downgrading your academics or whatever. But you would be in a far, far, far better position right now. And like, those are the rumors at that point in time. Like, TCU and Houston seem to be toward the top of the list. Clearly the Pac-12 wanting to get into Texas. It'd be a much better option than sitting here trying to scramble and come up with $18 million for SMU. Nothing against the Mustangs, but just the reality. The Yates 27. What's up, the Yates 27? Country roads take me home. Let's go, Mountaineers. There you go, the Yates 27, mixing it up for the Mountaineers. Shout out to Tavon Austin. Tavon Austin came across my Twitter timeline today. Nice highlight video of him. One of my favorite players in recent memory to watch. Great Mountaineer there. Warrior Pride 65. What's up, Warrior Pride 65? Thank you for the support. Warriors of Pride 65 says, with the extreme high temperatures this summer, if this continues into August and September, should there be serious conversations in the NCAA about postponing or relocating games to indoor stadiums? Oh, man, not something I had been thinking of here in realignment country, but I suppose, like with Arizona being a piece of the Big 12 potentially here, maybe that comes into play more. I don't know. I don't know enough on the subject. I would just tell you, like, I don't feel like I'm well-versed enough in the science behind that, what's going to hurt everybody, help everybody, how you're going to make that work. I don't know. I honestly do not know. I would consider myself unqualified to really answer that question. I suppose if we had to, and maybe the way, I mean, the temperature continues to go here with a lot of this stuff, we'll have to explore more permanent solutions for that at some point. But I don't think it's going to be me that will be in charge of that. So I wish I could give you a better answer to that, but I don't feel qualified to give you a great opinion one way or the other necessarily on that. I would think, though, Arizona would be a place where that would be a discussion if it's going to ever happen. Although dry heat there, right? I know dry heat, not the humidity that we talk about in the Midwest. Robert, what's up, Robert? Robert says Mandel on Sick'em 365, quote, mistake I made was trying to project how much money they can expect to make. It was totally off base. Yeah, that's the humility that I was talking about just a second ago that I heard from Stewart Mandel in that interview with 365. So I appreciate that, man. I can appreciate that. I know that, he's drawn a lot of ire from people, and rightfully so. I was frustrated. That pinned tweet that I had was basically a response to his TV article for like 2 years that I had left up as the pinned tweet on my account because it fired me up. It was really frustrating. And you feel like those guys do have a decent amount of influence at a time when your college football life is on the line. So I understand being mad, but I think you also have to come around and give some credit to those who are showing a little bit of contrition right now. And like, Andy Staples has done some of that too. There are people who are now doing that and recognizing that the Big 12 has really turned this ship around. Andre, what's up, Andre? Appreciate your support, Andre. I'm not seeing a question or comment attached to that. So if I'm missing it, I apologize. Let me know if I am. But thank you for your support, Andre. Andre King in the house. My man. Scrolling down here. Trying to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, Warrior Pride 65 checking in again. Says delay, not postponed. Also, there are delays for lightning. Why not have delays for extreme high heat indexes at game time? TV, I can tell you why. TV, they're not going to want to do that unless they absolutely have to. But then, it's the same thing. Like if the weather is severe enough that it dictates that you have to do that, then I'm sure they would do that. But you'd have to get some kind of higher body. I guess that would be the NCAA stepping in there, but you'd have to get some kind of higher body to come in and tell you when exactly that needs to happen, what the threshold is for all of that. Maybe some of that will develop if things continue to get hotter and hotter here, and there are more chances for that. So look, I'm not saying that you could be totally wrong and that wouldn't ever happen. I think it could in the same way that you're talking about, but it would. The reason that you wouldn't just right away have it and just be like free. Much more freewheeling with it is because of TV and them needing to have these windows and everything work out. Sean, what's up, Sean? Sean, appreciate you being here. Sean says, just want to say I love the show. Go Knights. Hey, love that, Sean. Thank you for your support. Go Knights. Looking forward to seeing UCF mix it up in the conference this year. K-State's conference opener this season. So thank you for being here, Sean. Appreciate your support, my friend. Same thing to Andrew. Andrew Streeter here. What's up, Andrew? Andrew says, the choice to leave seems pretty clear for Arizona. No, I don't really see any of their fans' mouthpieces who don't want them to make the jump. Yeah, the Arizona consensus right now seems to be very much on the front of going ahead and leaving. Here's like Jason Shear. I'm going to go back to Shear. I said he had a really good piece. You can find it on his Twitter account that was not behind a paywall, that was kind of like, hey, Arizona, you know what you need to do. And here's how this needs to go down. And here's one excerpt from it. He says, Arizona is known to be next up. There are conversations with the Big 12 that have already been had, and we expect those to pick up significantly. Colorado was much further down the line than any school involved in the process, but Arizona is second. The Wildcats know the pitch from the Big 12 and have gone about the process the right way. The Wildcats never wanted to be the first to go, and Colorado got that out of the way. Robbins will now ask for numbers like he has in the past, and they won't be presented. Eventually, the Big 12 will push a little bit, and when that happens, Arizona is likely to go. And I think that's pretty much the long and short of it. Like, that's as good a summation as you could offer to the situation right now that Arizona is in the situation between Arizona and the Big 12. Like, Robert Robbins has tried to be pretty diplomatic in all of this and give the Pac-12 a chance, even if I think Shear would probably tell you behind the scenes there hasn't been a ton of faith from Arizona that would happen. But they were trying to act in good faith and give them every opportunity to do that. It just has not materialized. And now with Colorado already gone, still no deal from Kliavkoff. Still days and days going by without something happening there tangibly on the front for the Pac-12 to give them a deal that could work out. People like Tony Altimore really seemingly waving the white flag. Canzano getting frustrated, a little bit of like anti-Arizona smoke from some of those corners in Pac-12 country would seem to indicate like they kind of really same thing with Colorado. When they realized Colorado was probably gone, it turned into, well, here's how bad their record has been. This isn't a loss. You can backfill, all these things. Starting to see some of that with Arizona too. So the writing is on the wall, very much so, yes. The only thing, Andrew, I think that can change it, and the only thing that would change it for me if I were in Arizona's shoes is if magically the TV deal ferry drops off a deal that is $30 million a piece for each team and like 60-40 linear versus streaming. Maybe even I could lower that to 27 mil a year per school or above and 60-40 linear versus streaming. Unless that deal just appears magically out of thin air, I don't know what other decision or choice you really have if you are Arizona there. And I mean, on that front, one thing that I don't remember who I saw point this out, but it was a really good point. Colorado, some of the quotes that came out from like DiStefano and Rick George at Colorado in their press conference after leaving, they said like, hey, we want more exposure. We want the money. We want to be aligned with ESPN and Fox. And when that's directly mentioned, like we want to be aligned with ESPN and Fox, that seems to lend some real credence to Fox probably not being involved here, right? And so, yeah, another reason for Arizona, I think, to follow in lockstep there with Colorado. And I think that is what we are going to see happen eventually. Just a matter of when, likely not if. Robert, hey, good callback, Robert. We've been doing receipts in the negative way, like receipts that paint the Pac-12 folks in a bad light and reflect poorly on them. But here is a positive receipt. Robert says 4/10/23. Andrew Marchand, watch Colorado. Back in April 10th, 2023, Andrew Marchand did say, watch Colorado. Dude, he has been on top of this. And this isn't like his beat, right? He's in it for the overall media picture of things. And he has covered a lot of things that are bigger deals than just what's happening in conference realignment throughout this whole entire process. But when he has dropped in, he's been pretty damn accurate. Like he reminded me on Twitter the other day when I put out the blurb from Dodd that said, hey, there are rumors that at one point Kliavkoff was asking for $500 million, $50 million per team in this whole TV deal, which is just outrageous. Andrew Marchand said, hey, I reported this back in September, and he had the blurb in September that the Pac-12 was hundreds of millions of dollars apart on its TV deal negotiations, hundreds of millions of dollars apart, saying like, hey, yeah, man, like I had that too. There were hundreds of millions of dollars apart, and he's been on it. And then yes, in April, he said, watch Colorado. I can remember talking about that on a live show at the time. Watch Colorado. Marchand talks to folks in the TV industry. He doesn't have a dog in this fight. That's one of the sources I trust the most. And one of the guys that like when he talks, I listen the most. My ears perk up the most when he is speaking because he doesn't have the biases that a lot of people do throughout this whole process. People just influence one way or the other. That is not what he is about. R-Web, what's up, R-Web? R-Web's got a soliloquy for us here, some bars, if you will. R-Web says to Georgie, quote, I'm so far ahead of my time. I'm about to start another life. Look behind you. I'm about to pass you twice. Be Izzo. Don't disagree, R-Web. That is very appropriate. I've seen that admission coming even from John Wilner. I read it from John Wilner today, where he said, certainly it's clear that Brett Yormark has outmaneuvered George Kliavkoff. That's, when we talk again about some of the admissions and not being able to ignore it anymore from Pac-12 country, that is one of them. So that is good stuff, R-Web. And this is that time, R-Web, there was no Burt Reynolds reference that you had to explain to me later on Twitter with the eastbound and down thing. So I appreciate that, making it a little more millennial friendly. Aglist, what's up, Aglist? Always appreciate you, Aglist. Thanks for being here. Aglist says, John, thanks for being the voice of the Big 13. How does that sound, everybody? The Big 13. And I appreciate that. You are too kind. I would not consider myself to be the voice. There are a lot of us here that are doing great things in this space and advocating for the conference, but I very much appreciate you saying that. Aglist says, hope we get Oregon and let Utah fans rant their academic arrogance in the Mountain West. Rock Chalk Jayhawk Allen. Yeah, Utah fans, boy, it does not. I don't know. What is the pulse check on Utah fans here lately? I feel like the last maybe 24 to 48 hours, I haven't seen quite as much. Is reality setting in here? Like, are they thinking about a future in the Big 12? Like, where are Utah fans actually at on this? Would very much like to know, because I don't. I've got no idea. But it seems like everybody is very much in the same boat on that. I'd also, Pac-12 fans, if you're a Pac-12 fan, I'd be curious what your interactions with Utah fans were like throughout their time in the conference, because my only perspective has been here once this realignment thing started. So that's all I've got. I would very much like to know what Pac-12 fans have thought. Cat fan in Huskerland, a.k.a. Daniel Osborne. What's up, Daniel? Thank you for being here. Appreciate your support as always. Daniel says, hey, John, could you pull the 18-wheeler up to the Loves in Schuyler, Nebraska? Go Cats, and here's to Mahomes Magic Crunch in 2023. That's a great – that's the perfect spot, Daniel. I don't see why there would be any better spot to do that. Trying to advocate for Nebraska to come back into the league too. Heart of truck stop country, Nebraska fancies themselves Big Ten famous now. We could go pull up to Schuyler, Nebraska. Sure. I'll bring the 18-wheeler over there. I've got it parked outside right now. It's out front here in my downtown loft apartment. Just got the 18-wheeler parked out front, ready to roll. So we'll get it out there and start the convoy to Schuyler, Nebraska. Appreciate your support, Daniel. Thank you for being here, as always, my friend. John Teal says the only ferry we've got out west right now is green. I guess that must be a response to the I did say the only way it changes for the Pac-12 is if you get a TV deal plopping down out of nowhere from the TV deal ferry. Yeah. They could certainly use one of those. Mike, what's up, Mike? Mike K, I appreciate your support. Mike says number one want is Arizona. Utah, Arizona State, San Diego State, good if they come. No sleep lost if they don't. UConn, last resort for the 14. After that, close up shop. No Oregon, Washington rental. I definitely understand that stance, Mike. I think I came on pretty strong in the initial aftermath of the Colorado thing. Like, okay, Washington and Oregon are actually having some dialogue here. Go for the kill. Take it down. Bring those two. Soak up as much as you can from their prestige being in the conference now and just run with it. Having time to analyze it a little bit, I do see now, it's more complicated than that. I do think it's more complicated than that. But I will say this. On the Oregon, Washington rental front, I trust Brett Yormark. I trust Brett Yormark's decision-making in that. I don't think he's dumb. I think I'm sure would prioritize hey, we've got tons of positive momentum and a lot of unity right now in this conference. I'm not bringing you in here to screw that up. So if that's really going to be the deal, you're going to be that far out, totally 1 foot out, begrudging the fact that you're here. It's not going to be a great partnership for either one of us. Let's just not do that. I trust that Brett Yormark will kind of lay the law down enough to get a feel for what he thinks would be coming from either one of those schools if they were to enter the league. And if he thinks it's not going to work because of that, I don't think that they would do it. Now, that's not infallible. They could fake to have a better attitude before they get in here and then change once they're actually here. That very well could happen. But Brett Yormark has earned enough trust and respect from me that I think he could probably suss some of that out. So if he deems it worth doing, I will back it. But I can also understand if it's not going to be worth it. I have kind of changed my tune a little bit on that. I would still slightly prefer it, but I understand. I understand that it is quite complicated. All right. Scrolling back up the chat here. Sorry, guys. Andrew, what's up, Andrew? Andrew, thank you for chipping in again. Appreciate you, my friend. Andrew says, regardless of how this round of realignment shakes out, each conference needs to pick new non-numerical specific names if they don't have one already. That is a hilarious reality in this whole prospect, right? I mean, the Big Ten hasn't been there for years. At least the SEC. I mean, the SEC, damn the SEC. They're just the leader in everything. They're the leader even in how to name their conference appropriately here because there's no numbers. It's just the Southeastern Conference. So you don't have to worry about any of that. Much as I hate to admit it, they're always going to be the power here because of their proximity to talent, the tradition, and the massive fan bases and the landscape of why they care about it more there. They're always going to be at the top, and they're even there with the naming of their conference. They are. ACC is doing a pretty good job with that too, right? Atlantic Coast Conference, they follow in the footsteps. They've got something figured out there in the South and the Southeast with the naming. I've seen some people though, Andrew, try to prognosticate what the Big 12 should do, what they should change their name to. And I have not liked a single idea that I've seen. So that's the tough part. Yormark is, I guess, the marketing whiz. So maybe if anybody can come up with something good, it would be Brett Yormark. But I have not seen one yet that I have liked. And a lot of them make me cringe a little bit. And you do lose. you're kind of trapped in a sense because you then lose like whatever brand equity is in the Big 12. And I know for a long time it was not really good. Like any residual effects from the name would not be great because of what the reputation of the league was. But now it's better, and you're starting to develop more along that line. If you change it and it's not well received publicly, that could be a big public image hit and a marketing hit that would curtail some of your momentum. So I do think there is some risk there. But in general, yeah, your point is very well taken. Like, why did we do the numbers thing? The numbers thing set everybody up for failure. David, what's up, David? Oh, David's got the update on Utah fans. Thank you, David. David, right on top of it. David says, seeing a lot of Utah fans come into their senses. Utah President Taylor Randall met recently with BYU President Shane Reese. Athletic alignment, probably the dominant conversation. Okay, Utah fans come into their senses. Outside of the one that I did say, or that I did see, you're like really lamenting having to come to the towns of the Big 12. So, okay. But yes, David, that makes sense because Utah, I think Utah is probably going to be relatively okay based on whether it's in the Big 12 or like some, the Pac-12 has 8 teams and they either stick at 8 or add a couple and they're not making a ton of money, but at least it's still a league out there with fairly easy playoff access. Like, I think they'll still be relatively okay, but there is a scenario here where Arizona comes, Oregon and Washington come, the Big 12 decides to work that thing out, and then the Pac-12 is like really collapsed, and now you are stuck in like a kind of Frankenstein version of the what's left of the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, and that is a legitimate possibility out there for Utah. I wouldn't call it certainly likely, but it is a possibility, and I would at least be a bit nervous about that if I were a Utah fan, and maybe that would start to bring me around to come into my senses. No one's taken away the Rose Bowl losses from them, but it may take away their semblance of having like a legit conference to be in. So, okay. Kuz, what's up, Kuz? Thank you for being here. Kuz's Corner. Make sure everybody go follow Kuz's Corner on YouTube. Great stuff there. Doing a great job covering all of this as well. One of our great Big 12 YouTubers out there. So he's informing me. He says, John, and FYI, you have a troll. Name is Alex Jones. I feel like I saw that in here a couple chats ago. I'm scrolling down the chat right now, and I'm not seeing it. So I must have missed some of the action. Oh, I see Robbie's been doing work. Thank you, Robbie. Shout out to Robbie, everybody. Robbie doing the moderator work here in the chat. I can see a bunch of messages that have been deleted. So, hey, thank you for bringing my attention to that. Thank you, Robbie, for taking care of that. You are the best. Thank you for consistently being here and doing that. Everybody give some love to Robbie. Give some love to Robbie in the chat. Let me take the time here to remind all of you, if you are here, please like the video if you have not. Totally free. Easy way to support the channel. You can also leave a comment in the comment section before, during, or after the video. I would appreciate that as well. All helps me with that algorithm. You know how important the algorithm is to us content creators. Would very much appreciate you doing that. And I'm sure a lot of you here have not subscribed to the channel. More new people here. I'm live at least twice a week. Please consider subscribing if you have not already, so that you get, and then click the bell so that you get notifications. You'll know when I'm dropping content. We're talking conference realignment, college football, college basketball, here on this channel all the time. You're getting a Big 12 slant on it, but we're always talking anything realignment and college football and college basketball going on in here. So please consider subscribing if you have not. I would much appreciate it. Like that video. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you're not catching this live and you would like a chance to support the channel as well. Couldn't do it without all of you guys. You've been incredibly, incredibly generous with your support, and I truly do appreciate that. John, what's up, John? John Alstrom, do you prefer Gulf War or Space Race for UCF Houston? Oh, I like Space Race a lot better there. I like Space Race a lot. Obviously, Houston with NASA. UCF has they've been doing the space game now for a while with the uniforms and the Citronaut and all that. I think Space Race is great. I'm definitely here for that. Can we do a neutral site game like on the NASA campus or something? That seems like it would be befitting of the Space Race there. Yeah, I'm here for that. I like it, Josh. I had not heard anybody float that yet, but we need We need all the good rivalries we can get, and we need all the just finding ways to build rivalries here within this new conference. I want all the natural ones we can get. If we can get eventually the ACC breaks apart, we get the backyard brawl. If it works out with the four corners and we get the holy war, bring them all here, and then let's develop some too. Space race, UCF and Houston. I am here for it. Okay. I think that may wrap it up, guys. I mean, I have a ton of stuff on my note sheet that we didn't get to specifically, but you get the big picture ideas here. Your takeaways today: Arizona's on the clock. Seems like there may well be some sort of a deadline next week. Even if that deadline is not met by the Pac-12 and Arizona gets their mind fully made up, it will probably take some time to flesh out after that. So don't be dismayed if there is not official movement next week. Pay attention to Jason Shear, as plugged in as anybody on the Arizona side and has been on it every step of the way throughout this realignment process. Pac-12 propaganda machine is seemingly losing hope, getting frustrated with their league. I guess I didn't mention John Wilner lowered his survival odds to 2.5-point favorite from 4 to 2.5. So he still has survival for the Pac-12 as a favorite, but it is slight. And it does seem like the general tone from them seems to be almost throwing up their hands a little bit and realizing that Arizona is probably gone. And even, Tony Taltimore now is making graphs where it shows up like Oregon and Utah would be better off in the Big 12 in terms of where they fit with academics and athletics than the Big 10. So that's where we're at, man. That is where we're at. That's where we're at right now. Michael, beating the buzzer. Michael says Utah is better off staying in the pack. Hashtag playoffs. Hashtag go Cougs. Well, it may not. Speaking of conference names, can we call it the Pac-10 West? Merging the Mountain West, the Mountain Pac, the Mountain Pac Conference, something like that. That could be the ultimate future. Could be the future there. Anyway, thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody who was here tonight. Much appreciate you. Like the video on your way out the door. I would really appreciate that. Just one click, like the video. Make sure you subscribe if you have not. Here to this channel, live twice a week. Tell your friends about it. Friends, family, tweet about it or X about it, whatever it is you're calling it these days. Thread about it, Facebook groups. If you're in Facebook groups, fans of your team, fans of the conference, appreciate you all spreading it there. Instagram, wherever you're on social media, let people know. And then word of mouth, tell a friend about it. Tell a friend about it. If they're a college football fan, they're into realignment, Big 12 fans especially, let's get them here to this channel and continue growing this thing. Appreciate all of you guys immensely. To be determined what the schedule is going to look like this week, because obviously a ton of it is going to hinge on what happens, but it also hinges on what I can do for you, because I will be in Madison, Wisconsin from Wednesday through Sunday, and I don't know exactly what my schedule will look like and if I'll be able to get away. I will try my damnedest to make content for you. I'll bring the equipment for it, but it may wind up it's going to look a little different if it happens. So just be prepared for that. But I will do my best to stay on top of it for all you guys. And who knows, maybe I do get like a relatively quiet vacation here, but probably not. Anyway, take care. I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much for being here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.